Live from the KC Property Guys and KC Pier Studio in beautiful Kansas City. Home to over 200 fountains and more barbecue restaurants per capita than anywhere in the nation. It's the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show, a show about industry leaders from the local Kansas City metro market for Kansas City real estate related professionals and enthusiasts like you. And now, here's your hosts, Eric and Lucas Scheele.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Podcast. My name is Eric Scheele. I'm the president of KC Pier, KC Property Guys, and today we are talking foundations with KC Pier. We have the project lead and structural consultant for KC Pier in the studio today, Brian Dufour. Welcome, Brian.
How we doing?
I'm doing okay. You ready to talk some foundations?
Yeah.
Yeah, right on. We do it every day. You know, we're KC Pier, so we talk foundations every single day. So we thought we would give an overview today about the different types of foundations that we see on a day-to-day basis. And we'll probably start the most recent, from concrete poured walls, but then we'll take it back to even rock walls and some of those issues, and then even talk about the non-structural, or not necessarily non-structural, but the non-full basements, the crawl space, block, rock, and even slabs. And so we're going to talk about all types of foundations and give an overview. I think we're going to cater it, since it's the springtime this year, is more towards the spring issues that we're seeing, but we'll talk about all of them. And hopefully you guys will, those that are watching and listening and reading, will pick up on some things that obviously may pertain to you, because we're in Kansas City and we know our soils. We've talked about them a lot. And we see a lot of issues with our composition of our soils when it comes to our foundations. So we're going to give a quick overview today. You ready to jump in?
Let's go.
Okay. So with let's start with poured foundations, right? This time of year, specifically in the spring, what types of things are you seeing literally on an everyday basis?
Right now, what we're running into is horizontal cracking and cracks coming off window that are allowing water in basements.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing that's going on, because we're obviously in the Midwest, we get flash floods pretty rapidly.
Yep.
So with that being said, some drains can't keep up, or the drains you don't have allow water to come in the cracks. And a lot of people don't necessarily focus on the cracks until they get water in the basement.
Of course. And then, of course, we've had these rains lately. And in KC Pier's office, when the rains, then the phone starts really ringing. You know, it doubles, triples, quadruples, right? Everybody
Absolutely.
wants a fix when the water is finally coming in the basement. It would have come in at any time. But now that it's actively there, we've got to do something about it.
After
right?
you're up all night with the shop vac, it's like time is right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. So relating to cracks, because you talk specifically about horizontal cracks, and I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but you want to talk about the source of what causes that horizontal versus some people are seeing the diagonals or the stair steps or fractional, thin spider cracks, or some of those differences. Can you kind of speak on that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, usually what you go through in the Midwest, because 80% of the time it's water.
Yep.
Our soils expand, so you don't see a lot of houses settling as much as you do water causing the houses to move and the walls to move in.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, horizontal cracks are what you see when you have too much hydrostatic pressure and too much water on the exterior. You also get the 45-degree angles off the corners of the walls or off the corners of windows. And those are signs of the wall starting to move inward.
Yep.
You get those, right now we're talking about poured, but you get those on every foundation that has that much pressure on the outside.
Right. And so to kind of restate that, because you're summarizing it really, really well in terms of the pressure, but the pressure is caused, if we step back a second, from the clay that's expanding kind of like a sponge. We like to talk about it like a sponge. And so as that water begins to hydrate the clay then begins to expand. And if it sits there long enough in an expanded mode, that's pressuring. It's basically your foundation wall against the earth.
Yes.
All right, let's have a tug of war. Foundation wall or earth? Who's going to win? The earth is going to win every single time.
Absolutely.
And eventually you're going to see, if it's sustained pressure for long periods of time, is what you're getting at, is that horizontal crack that really starts to show up.
Correct. Usually it starts on the corners because the corners have the other walls help supporting it.
Yep.
So you'll see the cracks start from the corners and work their way up into the middle of the foundation.
Yep.
That's the weakest point.
Mm-hmm.
And when your soil expands, it's Mother Nature versus your wall.
Right.
Mother Nature's always going to win if it's not corrected.
Exactly. So what do you do about them? All right. You got water coming in your basement, whether it's a horizontal crack, diagonal crack, in a corner, in the middle. You got this crack that's wet. It's hydrated. What are some of the common fixes that we see on KC Pier as well for homeowners that they can do to help basically take care of the water?
It really depends on how fast you catch it.
Yep.
If you catch it pretty quick, you can do some exterior drainage. You can do some positive grading. You can get some downspouts away, and it could be something as a simple crack injection to fill that crack. And then once you take care of all the positive grading outside, you could stop it at that moment.
Well, I like your approach already because and we do this by default with KC Piers. You're thinking for the homeowner. You may not even recognize you're doing this, but you're thinking for the homeowner because you're thinking, all right, what's the least expensive? What's the things that I can do that are hands-on that as long as you catch it soon enough, there are some DIY type of stuff aside from maybe the crack injections that you can kind of do to help alleviate the issue. So you've already started that, but continue and just I wanted to point that out because that's the way we kind of talk about things. We point out A, B's, and C's.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So you're starting with the least expensive and working your way up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because depending on how much you use your basement, whether it's unfinished or finished,
Right.
sometimes you can't catch it fast enough because it's a finished basement. So with it being unfinished and you do see those cracks, you could potentially stop it and save thousands of dollars.
Right.
Depending on when you catch it, if the wall starts to come in, it starts to have that inward movement. Depending on how far it comes in, you might be able to catch it with I-beam braces.
Right.
You still have to do the positive grading outside to make sure the water is getting away, but you could put up I-beam braces, support the wall where it is, prevent it from moving in any further, and then inject the cracks. So you don't have the water intrusion, and you're also stopping the wall from moving in.
Yep. So you have crack. You have grading first. That's the common sense approach.
Correct.
Anybody can do it, but you can obviously hire someone to do it as well. You got crack injections, which you are obviously using some more specific tools that actually do it right, which is probably that next level, next step up. If the wall is in so far, so it's beyond tolerances. So some movement's okay, but there are definitely tolerances where it's too much. Then obviously the I-beams come into play and the crack injection. So the two working in combination with each other.
Yep.
We're escalating the expense, but we're also alleviating the issue from the inside out. You still haven't gotten to really taking care of the issue itself, which is the exterior, which is eventually where we're going. But that's what you've done so far to this point.
Yeah.
What's the next escalation?
And then depending on what you want to do, at that point is a full excavation.
Yep.
What we call the full repair plan.
Mm-hmm.
Option A is take care of everything. You don't have to worry about nothing. That is completely excavating the wall out past the footing, taking all the pressure off the wall. And then what we do is we actually lift the house about a 1/4 inch off the foundation. So it relieves the pressure off the foundation. So when we push, it don't cause any structural damage to the house.
Right.
Once we get to that point, we push the wall to structural limitations. We don't ever say level because we don't know what the house is going to do or react.
Right.
Because it's also a repair.
What will it withstand? Right.
Correct. Once we get it back, we use a Melroll membrane, and then we seal the wall. We waterproof the wall all the way down past the footing. We want to make sure the waterproofing goes past the footing because you have the cold joint where the footing and the foundation wall meet.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that's isolated and sealed so the water can't find its way through.
Nope. Perfect.
Once we get all that done, we put a brand new 4-inch corrugated pipe next to the footing, and we either run that to daylight, depending on what land you have, or into a pump that we have to install in one of the corners of the wall that we're digging. After that is done, we backfill 85-90% gravel. The gravel acts as a crush barrier. A lot of people think it's there for drainage. It helps dramatically, but it's there for a
Right.
crush barrier.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. The podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your likes, shares, and support. Now, back to the show.
So that soil that expands and retracts on the opposite side of the gravel hits the gravel, and the gravel absorbs all that pressure, and that's where you get
bet.
the full repair plan.
You're taking away what's causing the issue in the first
Correct.
place, right? You're getting rid of the clay. That's why we're excavating the exterior of the home. Let's get rid of the problem. The problem is that clay has been expanding and it's pushing on that wall to the point where it's beyond tolerances. So now that you can take care of that, let's get rid of it. Don't put it back
Yeah.
when you're all done. And
Absolutely.
we've seen that, right?
We have seen that, and usually when you put it back, you can never compact it like Mother Nature has.
Absolutely.
So instead of adding the same soil back, you're adding extra weight because it absorbs more water.
right.
So it's not really doing anything.
Yeah, we've seen companies do that because maybe the gravel's not available, or maybe they're cutting cost, and it's really a critical step. And so bringing in the gravel to alleviate, like you said, absorb the pressure that's outside that gravel, because there is still clay there, and also help with drainage is extremely beneficial. Most people talk about it as drainage because it'll percolate through the
Correct.
gravel to the drain that you're putting in, but you're also absorbing the pressure, so you're taking less pressure against that wall,
Absolutely.
which is allowing your braces, if that's what you're doing, or earth anchors, which we could talk about a little bit, but any supportive material or procedure that you're using on the inside of the house is now being able to function that much more efficiently.
Correct.
Right.
It's basically to function at its full potential at this point.
Perfect. And that is a full excavation where walls have come in beyond tolerances, and sometimes we've seen walls in 4 or 5 plus inches. I mean, with even the latest one that we were looking at, a massive investment house in South Kansas City, I heard was closer to 10, 11 inches or so.
Yeah, they definitely neglected it for quite a while.
Unbelievable, to the point where it's about to almost collapse. So you can recover it as long as it's still standing, and what you're saying is you'll push it back to whatever structurally is allowed. We don't necessarily like to use the word level. Sometimes it works out that way.
Yes.
But we'll structurally monitor that and take it back to its proper tolerances.
Correct.
And then support it accordingly.
Correct.
Right.
The positive thing is once we get it to where we feel it's comfortable, it's not going to move from there.
Right.
So the main goal is to prevent it from moving and recover what we can.
Agreed.
The positive is that's it. That's where it stays.
Yep. Nope.
So that's the main goal. So that way you don't have to worry about it any further.
And we talk shop all the time in KC Pier. I mean, it is a passion for us. And some people think of foundation issues as a black gypsy box. They just don't know what's inside, and they'll get 5 opinions that come in, and they'll get 5 totally different opinions, both verbiage opinions and financial opinions. They are all over the board. We take our work extremely seriously, and so we want to be able to provide people with not only the correct fix, but also other alternative options depending on the financial variables or the life variables of the homeowner as well. And that's what I really like about our approaches is we take a real holistic approach to foundation repair. We take it extremely seriously. And we want to make sure, whether it's an investor home or whether it's a homeowner who's getting ready to move or whether it's a lifetime home for a homeowner, and we want to take that proper approach based off the life variables and then produce options backing away from what really truly is the full fix, what we kind of call the Cadillac fix, and then the one fix that'll kind of get you by, and then we look at a hybrid in between. And so we come up with different financial variables for homeowners to make proper choices for the home, which is great. So that's a really good summary. The one piece that we didn't necessarily talk about is that real intermediate piece that kind of stands between the braces and not digging out the outside, and the braces and digging outside, which is that internal drain system, which we actually use quite a bit, right?
Yes.
The difference is essentially it's the same thing. It's an internal drain system, but I want you to speak more on it than I can. But just as an introduction, it's an internal drain system. So it's essentially doing the same thing that you would be doing on the outside, except it's more accessible. For one, you're not taking care of the clay, but it's more affordable because it is more accessible. Can you talk a little bit more about how that actually works, though?
Yes. So when you do an interior drain system, you need a pump no matter what.
Right.
You put a pump, in my opinion, in the lowest point of the basement if it's allowable. That way, because that's where water flows. Once you get to that point, the interior drain system, we come in, we break out 10 to 12 inches, and we still dig down next to the footing.
Yep.
As we do that, we also make positive grade in the trench from the highest point of where the drain is to the pump.
Makes sense.
So that way, the actual 4-inch drain isn't doing all the work.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get that in, we put the 4-inch drain next to the footing. We encase it in gravel, and then we put in what's called dimple board, which goes over the gravel and goes over the footing, and then it comes up the wall.
Yep.
And what that does is it actually acts as two options. What it is the first one is it's allowing water to flow underneath the footing and the foundation where
Yep.
that cold joint is.
Yep.
And number two is when we put the concrete in, the concrete don't soak into the gravel and soak into the 4-inch drain pipe, and we cause the clog.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So that's a barrier between the concrete and the actual drain systems that you're putting in there.
Correct.
So it can operate and work efficiently. And the other piece that you said is that water's coming through the cold joint. And that's something we talk about with homeowners a lot that they don't necessarily realize is that vertical wall in your basement sitting on the footer
Yes.
of your basement floor is not joined, cemented, caulked, grouted, nothing.
No.
It's weight on weight.
That's all it is.
Cold on cold, right? And so sometimes when there's enough hydrostatic pressure, water pressure, it finds the path of least resistance.
Absolutely. What it does is it finds that path, and what a lot of homeowners don't know is your slab in the basement is not tied into the foundation. It's a floating slab.
Mm-hmm.
So by default, there's a cold joint there because of our soils. You can't tie it into the foundations because of how massive our soils expand.
Yeah. If you did, they'd really be cracked.
Absolutely.
We'd be extremely busy.
Correct.
So they're
Yeah.
made to move
It's made to move.
independently of each other.
Correct.
Right.
So with that being said, when we get a massive amount of water and it just can't keep up with it, that is the easiest path for water to come in.
Yeah. And so that interior drain system is there to capture that water. Any other water, you even have, we have a wall shield product. So
Yes.
if the wall is leaking, we can push the water down to that drain system.
Yep.
Which is great for finished basements, by the way. And you don't see it with a lot of companies. I love the solution. It really looks great.
It looks really good. I mean,
Right?
honestly, if you put it up, you just put floors down and you don't have to put sheetrock up. It looks very good.
Yeah, it's solid.
And it's doing, and it's keeping the basement dry as a bone. So
Right.
you have very easy.
Absolutely. And so it's a great product. And so in doing so, you've essentially have created truly an internal drain system that captures the water after it gets inside the house. But it's captured it, it's sloped effectively, it drains into the sump pump, and out it goes. So you don't have the musty smells, the mold smells. None of those issues are there because the water is out as almost as fast as it comes in.
Yep.
Right? Great overview of poured foundations.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Kansas City Real Estate Industry Leaders Show. Please support all things local to Kansas City. And hey, be sure to subscribe and share our podcast on Facebook and LinkedIn. This has been a KC Property Guys production. KCPropertyGuys.com.